dos, un, dos, un, dos, tres, cuatro, test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Eso funciona bien. Funciona. Vale. Ahí viene la alemana, que es con la que hay que hablar. Present the members of the panel.
Yes,
Okay?
yes, that's all.
I am journalist.
I used to work at journalism as well before lecture.
Good afternoon. So I'm director of Tallinn University, and first of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Antonio Tajani, the President of the European Parliament, and the members of the European Parliament to our university. So this is really a great pleasure to have you here. And today we will hear about, or we will have very interesting debate about the future of Europe. I'd like to start just telling to our delegation or our friends, guests from Brussels about a few numbers about Tallinn University. So Tallinn University is a public university in Estonia. We are third largest in terms of number of students. We are home for roughly 8,000 students, so that's a big number in Estonia. You know, our country is not small, our country is very small. And about almost 9% of students are from abroad. And almost 5% of students are from Europe. We all know the most successful European student mobility program, Erasmus and Erasmus Plus now. We have roughly 850 staff, and we are very happy that almost 10% of our academic staff is from abroad. And I'm telling about these numbers because I would like to emphasize the importance of internationalization for universities. So today there will be debate about the future of Europe. Internationalization and strong Europe is really important, is essential for universities, because for quality of teaching, for good research and innovation. So for universities, there is no question that we need strong Europe, and I really hope that today's debate will bring up some new ideas about how to make Europe stronger, how to make Europe more successful, and also how to bring Europe even more closer to students and to our people. So once again, I would like to wish you very, very welcome, and I really look forward to today's debate. Thank you.
Ma arvan, et oluline on, et iga Euroopa Liidu riik võiks saada võimaluse tuua välja oma kultuurilised eripärad rohkem kui praegu.
Kõige tähtsam on ju kõigepealt rahva heaolu ja see, et me liiguksime koos.
Need, mis praegu on, et kõige suurem teema kindlasti on pagulased.
Kõikide probleemidega.
Üleüldiselt Euroopa probleemidega.
Rändeprobleem on kõige suurem probleem.
Kuidas need inimesed integreerida ühiskonda, mis neist saab?
Turvalisus.
Keelaksin sõjapidamise. Tuleviku põlvkondade elu rajamisele, kuidas seda paremaks teha ja mis on probleemid ja peaks kindlasti lahendama.
Kindlasti rohkem soojus peaks tulema Eestisse.
Euroopa Liit võiks aidata kaasa sellele, et meil oleks ühtne majanduslik ruum. Võib-olla keskkonnaprobleemidega, et rohkem sellele rõhku pöörama.
Tegeleks nende probleemidega, mis praegu üles on kerkinud, ala Brexit ja nii edasi, et vaadata neid probleeme, miks sellised rahulolematused tekkinud on.
Ma tunnen, et seal liiga palju seda ilma asjata istumist on ja ei otsusta konkreetselt midagi ei otsustatakse. Lihtsalt nagu nemad, niisugune tunne mõnikord, et nemad on lihtsalt selle meie elust väga kaugel on.
Ma üritaksin Euroopa Liidu juhtida nii hästi kui võimalik.
I don't know really, I have no idea how to solve something like that. I'm just a simple human being.
Ausalt öeldes ma ei teagi, mis tema ülesanded täpselt on, et palju tal võimu on.
Tööd.
Vaataks, et oleks rahu.
No ma mõtleksin selles suunas, kuidas teha nii, et mitte ainult Prantsusel ja Saksamaal inimesed tundsid nii, et Euroopa Liit on tugev, aga ka teistes riigides, mis on Euroopa Liidu piires.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Antonio Tajani. I am Italian. I am the President of the European Parliament, elected in January this year. I am the new President. My predecessor was Mr. Schulz. In my first life, I was Lieutenant of Italian Air Force. In the second life, I was journalist. I worked with one of the most important Italian journalists, Indro Montanelli, in the last century. He lived in Tallinn as professor for many years, as professor of Italian. Look on Wikipedia. Indro Montanelli is the name. And then I am married. I have one son and one daughter. My daughter is a psychologist, and my son is football player, a student of science of sport in Italian university. We need to answer for these questions. We are here for a dialogue between the European Parliament and the European citizens. I think it's important to speak with you today, to have this direct contact with you, because we need to reduce the distance between the European institutions and the citizens. We need a direct contact between the institutions and the citizens. Why? Because I think we need good answers for your questions. Immigration, terrorism, Brexit, youth unemployment. We are ready, all together, members of the European Parliament. In the European Parliament, there are 8 different political groups. And here you have the most important people working in the European Parliament. Mr. González Pons is coming from the European People Party. Mrs. Rodriguez, coming from the Socialist Group Party. Mr. Zile from the Conservative Group. Mrs. Zimmer from the GUE left-winger group. Mr. Lambert for the Green Group. Mr. Lundgren from the FDD is Eurosceptic group, is the group with Mr. Farage. And then Mr. Zanni is member of the ENF group, is a right Eurosceptic, is the group with Madame Le Pen and the Italian party Lega Nord. We are ready for your questions. For us it's important. I organize in every trip in Europe a meeting with the students, with the workers, with the unions, because I think it's better to have question and answer. Without television, without newspaper, I think it's important to have a direct contact with the citizens. You are the future of the European Union. For this it's important to speak with you. I don't know if you believe in Europe, but we don't have other solutions without Europe. The majority of the Europeans are in favor of the European Union, but we need to change. We need a better Europe. We need a Europe closer to the citizens. And we need also to pave the way for your future. We need to protect everyone in this European Union. But there are different positions because the Parliament is the house of the democracy. There are different groups. We don't have a majority as in the national parliament. For any proposal, there are different majorities. And the majority is the position of the parliament. I am the speaker. My job is to defend the position of the European Parliament, to be the speaker, and to explain our work to the citizen. Thank you very much. I stay in silence. I have my colleague, because I was journalist, as I said. Not only politician. I was elected for the first time in 1994, member of the European Parliament. Then I was for 7 years Vice President of the European Commission. Another time in 2014, elected for the 4th time member of the European Parliament, first Vice President, and now President. Thank you very much for hosting us in your university. I want to thank the rector for the hospitality, for organizing this very, very important meeting. For us, it's crucial to have this direct contact with the student. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Mr. President, members of the European Parliament, and other guests outside the university, welcome to Tallinn University. I hope you have a nice day here. And our own people, I see many of my own students here, and many other people from around the university. Well, welcome to the event. I hope you are going to enjoy it. So today we will discuss something that is very important. It is the future of Europe. I am old enough, I'm not very old, but I am old enough to remember both the Soviet Union and also Estonia before the European Union. But I have at home a son whose whole life he has lived in the European Union. From very early on, he has seen a blue flag with yellow stars. He doesn't know all the European flags yet, but he most definitely knows that one. And that has been part of his life the whole time. Estonia is a very small country, and one of the smallest in Europe. And this year, the end of this year, we will be hosting European presidency, and we will be most happy to do so. And Estonia will be hosting the presidency at a time where Europe is at an interesting situation, at an interesting point in history, and also at a difficult point. Of course, those who know European history, and I hope my students definitely do, after taking my classes, then Europe has had difficult points before. We have gotten over them, and we hope to get over them this time as well. So it is both an interesting and a difficult time, as they usually are. So what will happen today? Today we will have 4 different topics to cover. We will talk about Europe. First of all, future of Europe. What do young people want? What do people want in general? We will talk about unemployment, specifically youth-based. 4 topics that are most prominent panel discussion. We will be able to do though. So once again, thank you for coming, and let's get started with our first topic of the
I think it was an important remark that was made here that there are among us the second biggest economy debate. Tourism alike. Scientific funding, which in Europe largely
Some movements claiming that we can go back to national borders, we don't need European Union. But let me tell you, can we really believe on this? These are not good ideas, because it's clear for everybody, I believe, that in order to cope with climate change, we need to have a strong European Union. In order to cope with globalization and to make good trade deals and bringing jobs to Europe, we need to have the strength of the European Union. In order to cope with the risks of financial crisis again, we need to use the strength of the European Union. Look, we are here today because we are starting to work with Estonia to prepare the Estonian presidency. And a presidency is always an opportunity for a country, this time Estonia, to bring something new to the idea of the European Union. So let me tell you something I lived through myself by coming here to Estonia several times since, let me tell you, 2002. When I came here, you were still not a member of the European Union, but I understood that something was moving here. And something was a very innovative country creating a lot of new jobs in something called the digital agenda. And you go on inventing new things about this. And I believe this is positive, and you can bring this innovation spirit to the European Union as a whole. Nevertheless, we want to have innovative Europe with good living and working conditions for all. So our plea now in the European Parliament is to make sure that, okay, we are really embracing this digital revolution. This can create a lot of new jobs, new products, new services. You need to have a clear labor contract with clear rights when it comes access to skills, working conditions, time management, and so on. And the second thing, you can be sure that wherever you move, you can count on the sound social protection. So this, what we call the European Parliament, this is a welfare system for the 21st century. And we count on you, Estonian presidency, and you, young people from Estonia, to bring these ideas to the upcoming discussion. So that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, panelists. Now we would like to take some questions from the audience. We will take some questions first and then let the panel answer them all together. Now, who has some questions? Marked by...
Not difficult, please.
Okay, we have the first question here. Can the ladies on the side are the ones with the microphone. Before you start, sir, do we have a second question already? No. Okay, then there you go. Yes, that's the microphone.
Thank you. I'm Italian too, Mr. President.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Where do you come from?
I come from south of Italy, little town called Matera. It will be European capital of culture in 2019.
La conosco Matera, lo so.
Yeah. But I always lived in Rome, and I worked for Sky. I had my own Brexit with Sky Television. So now I'm a freelance, I live here. And just yesterday was the centennial anniversary of JFK's birth. And one of his quote is, not ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So just for this Estonian semester, which is your best expectation from Estonia and Estonians people? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? There is one. Do we have a third question already? Because we would move the mic. Okay. Yes, not? Yes, the floor is yours. Yes, that's a microphone.
Hello, I'm Luis. I'm from Portugal, and I would like to ask you, it seems that we are heading towards European Federation, and we'll eventually have a fiscal union. How can we assure citizens that they still have a in the and that the
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well,
No more questions?
well, I'm guessing most of them seem to be Estonian, and it's the Estonian way. It takes a while to warm up, and once we get started, it's difficult to stop. So prepare for more questions later. But as for now,
Mr. Zile is coming from close to Estonia. You are ready for the question?
Yes.
And for the answer? Okay.
Okay, hello. Well, actually, I'm from Latvia, and not far from you. And just, well, I on a previous question on just a very short. I think, well, I remember Soviet times, and well, of your age, I was not dreaming that Latvia and Estonia will become free. But since it was opportunity, and we did everything but possible to become free, because in the late 80s, there was a situation when some of our Western leaders also said, look, maybe we have to keep Gorbachev in place and to keep a Soviet Union just more democratic, but keeping together. But we were brave enough, and we get our independence. That's why I think we have to be very proud. And then we choose, I think, European Union, NATO, because of security, not to be again back under occupation of Russia. So that time was no more Soviet Union, but as Russia is still existing. So I think that's why we have to be very sure, and I don't agree with you said about British don't care about peace here in Baltic area, because in that case they will not deploy troops here in Estonia. And that was done mainly by British in the case of Latvia and by Canadians. But coming to the future, I will take the question about federalist approach. I remember it was 2012 or 2013, Mr. Barroso, that time was the president of the commission, he came with a big speech about the federal future of Europe and no other way. And I remember the Latvian journalists also being in Strasbourg that time, they asked me, what do you think? It's federal Europe, that's it? Well, I said my guess it's not so easy question, and perhaps we will forget about this speech and this statement after some time, and it's happened. So, but again, of course, future of Europe, it's not easy. What is biggest value for you? I suppose freedom to move from one state to other, to work, to study. That's, I think, it's value for your generation to compete. And for competition, it's very important single market, really pure single market for services, for example. And as we discussed this morning, there was Mr. Verhofstadt said about 60% of services market in single market of European Union is not really free. So I think you as a young generation are interested to compete in reality in a single market and then to rise your social standards and your salaries. In other case, we never be quickly to put the same social standards in Estonia or Latvia like in Germany or France or some other places, because we just are not so rich as economies, as a societies. But I think we don't ask additional money so much, but we would like to keep really competition in a purely single market. That is our ECR position, actually. Let's compete.
This morning, Mrs. Zimmer has been very active during the meeting with the Prime Minister, the government, and then with the President of the Parliament and the leaders of the Estonian Parliament. A lot of questions on Estonian presidency. Mrs. Zimmer, the floor is yours.
Okay. I will stand up because my voice is not... it's not possible.
Like Mr. President. Mr. President is more free than we, more attractive.
Yeah, this is the first obstacle I have here in Estonia.
Everyone is under my control.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say The European Union is created and is born on the base of the history in Europe. And we have our own history and our own standing why we are fighting or engaging for a European Union here. And one of two lessons I had from my biography, also for the future of the European Union. And I'm coming from the former GDR, part of Germany, and it was the European Union supporting us to get the reunification as Germany. But two lessons. The first lesson, no system has a right of eternity. If you think this system is the best you can get now, you have to work for it. You have to defend it. You have to do, and yourself, you have to do it. You can't wait that anyone has a plan B, plan C for the development for the future. You have to do it. The second one, I learned it's better to say, no, I'm not asking for power, I'm asking for responsibility. I think that's a difference. And asking the question or the situation now that we have a lot of inequalities between member states inside the European Union, that people are saying Brussels is so far away, and we in Germany sometimes we are saying Brussels is so far away as Moscow was away from Eastern Germany or so. No, you have to say, in my mind, we will defend it because way back to national organizations in a way that we think we could solve all the challenges we have to face, climate change, fight against poverty, social exclusion, for more democracy. We can't do it only in a national way. And looking to the challenges concerning Brexit, I only would like to say, if we think we can't create new walls in Europe between member states, look to the Republic of Ireland and to the north of Ireland. If we think we can bring back armed borders, or borders in which way? It will fail. We will fail. Our future is to accept and to respect our different developments, but also to care about how people in other member states live. Have they also the right, all the rights we want to get for all the members, all the people, all the citizens inside the European Union? Or should we find a way for a development, for a common future, and to correct the European Union, not also that we have a European Union as an internal market union, competition union, a union for the enterprises, for the banks, that we are putting people first. Will we have a social European Union or not? Will we have a democratic European Union or not? That's the way where we have to give answers, where we have to find alternatives, and we have to discuss about these alternatives for our common future. Thank you.
Europe also is in front line against climate change. Also during the last days, the European Union underlined, also during the dialogue with the United States of America, we want to strengthen our work against climate change. Mr. Lamberts is the leader of the Greens inside the European Parliament. Also today underlined during his speeches with the Prime Minister, the ministers, and the members of the Estonian Parliament, we need to work a lot on climate change. You have the floor.
Thank you, Antonio. And you're right, climate change is a very good starting point. Can anyone imagine that Estonia on its own will solve climate change? Of course not. Does anyone believe that even all European countries together will solve climate change? Of course not. In this case, we should go beyond and have a sort of global democracy to tackle this issue. But of course, we know that we don't have that. And the second best, and actually the only multinational or transnational democracy that we have, is the European Union, which makes it such a wonderful experience. A difficult one, but let's not break it, because it's quite obvious that we need to work together to face that challenge and so many others. Now, my starting point when I think of Europe is two figures. One is 5. 5% of the global population is what we are going to end up being in 2050. And the other figure is 2. 2% of the land we inhabit. So it's quite obvious that, well, if we want to have any lever on our future, it's together. And that links me to the question on the federal Europe. Do we need a federal Europe? Yes, of course, because we need to be able to act together. And actually, we already have a federal currency. We already have a federal central bank. Can we stop there? No. There's only two consistent positions here. Either we say we want to align democracy at the national level, and so we should stop the euro, we should stop whatever is federal and renationalize everything, but precisely because of the argument that I used, even altogether, we're still only 5%. Germany, that's 1%. France, it's 1%. Estonia, Belgium don't count. That's beyond the comma. So forget about that. Because of the size of the challenges, we need to work together. So the other coherent position is to say we have an unfinished federation. And if we want to have democratic accountability when it comes to monetary policy, to economic policy, to fiscal policy, and all the rest of it, you really need to build up the federal democratic structures to control that. And I would argue to you that the European Parliament is one piece of that democratic accountability. We are elected by exactly the same people who vote for the national parliaments. Of course, fewer turn up to vote, but it's the same citizens. So we are not of a lesser democratic quality. But don't forget this other instrument of European policy, which is a council, the governments. And there's a lot to be done to improve the democratic accountability at that level too. I mean, how often, in how many countries, do the governments go to their parliament before they take a position at European level? Germany is one very good case, where the Bundestag has its word, its say, before the German federal government takes a position in Brussels. But I can tell you, in my country, in Belgium, it's not the case. So there's an immense democratic deficit there, which we need to solve. But then again, don't use the argument that this multinational democracy that we start building is imperfect to say then we stop with it. Rather, let's perfect it. Let's make it better so that indeed we have the levers to act together. Now, one last point about federal Europe. When these two words go together, often they are understood by the people who use them, but also by the people who understand them, centralized Europe. But a federation is not a central state. What I mean by that is that you do not vest all the powers at the center. I like to see powers at the local level. I like to see powers at the regional level. I like to see powers at the national level. I don't want to get rid of the nation state, because we are a special case of unity in diversity, and I want to keep the diversity of Europe. And then, yes, there's powers I want to see at the European level, but I don't want all powers vested at the European level, because no one has all the intelligence to know from the center what needs to be done all over the place. We've experimented that. I mean, Soviet Union was a very good case in point. Well, to a large extent, the communist China is that kind of regime. This is not where I want to go. Democracy in the 21st century should be about leveraging collective intelligence, and there's a lot of intelligence on the ground. Not all intelligence is at the center.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next step.
And as interesting as that was, we have to move on. We briefly mentioned or talked a little bit about workers, and we would like to continue with this topic, and I would like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Eva-Elise Roosma, who will talk about youth unemployment in Europe.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to open the session on youth employment from the results from the project of Horizon 2020 Accept, where we gathered some interviews with youth who are facing some difficulties in entering the labor market. In many cases, there is a bundle of issues that stand in the way of achieving fulfilling working life. To bring some examples from Estonia, several young people explained that it is not difficult to find any kind of job or the first job. But it is difficult to find a good job, something that corresponds with one's expectations, something that offers future prospects for development, for training, better salary, stability, and so on. And not any kind of working experience brings youth closer to a desired job. The level of education is, of course, of paramount importance. However, after a young person has gained certain independence, it often means working, it means providing for oneself, living separately from parents. But in this situation, it is quite difficult to improve one's knowledge and skills if, for example, educational path has been interrupted early. Our interviews showed that in transition to adulthood, parental support or support of family is very important, but not everybody has it. There are some examples of young people receiving courses via public employment agency that will lead to desired jobs, but these are very seldom. However, Estonian young people are very much interested in the idea of own business. So many mentioned it, but they also mentioned that it is difficult to do it on your own, so very few have tried it. But still it is very positive that there is the idea of welcoming the idea of own business. Thus it seems that the most important thing is to support youth in deepening and widening their knowledge and skills, but also social networks via different formal and informal environments, and also digital ones. And this, I believe, will lead to those desired jobs in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Horizon 2020 is one of the most important package for the competitiveness of the European Union, more or less 80 billion euros in this financial framework. This is important for the industry, for small and medium-sized companies, also for the university. I think youth unemployment is one of the most important problems. The Europeans want our protection, our answer. Mr. Zanni is one of the younger members of the European Parliament. He's coming from the north of Italy. It's a region where it's possible to work for the young student, for young people. In the northern regions, it's more difficult. Mr. Zanni, what do you think on this?
Let me first of all thanks the Tallinn University for organizing this debate. It's always very important to talk and to discuss with the new generations of Europe that will lead the future and will shape the future of our continent. So youth unemployment is one of the biggest problems of European citizens and that European citizens are facing today. My view about the contribution of the European Union to the wellness of European citizens is a little bit critical, let's say, than the one of my colleagues. I think that the European Union has a strong responsibility in the dire economic situation that we are facing today. Something is going wrong and is not functioning well with the rules that we have agreed in the treaties, and especially in the Treaty of Maastricht, that is one of the most important European law framework that European countries agreed in 1992. I come from, as Antonio was saying, I come from one of the richest regions in Europe, not only in Italy, that is Lombardy. But I have to say that we are also experiencing unacceptable higher unemployment rates, especially for young people. The official data for young unemployment in Italy is close to 40%. The real rate probably is even higher. And we don't have to take in mind only the average unemployment rate, but we have to take in mind also the inequalities in income that we are living, not only between different European countries, but between generations and between different population in the member states. So one of the most important problems that the new European generation has to face in the future is inequality. Inequality is rising in pretty much everywhere in Europe. So this is one of the biggest challenges. The big question, in my view, is that one. Is the European Union framework able to cope with this challenge? Will be the European Union able to cope with this unacceptable high unemployment rate that is spreading throughout Europe, not only in the southern part? Will be the European Union able to set up policies that are able to create well-paid jobs, not just for the younger generation, but for all the European citizens? I think, and I appreciated that in the title of the debate, you use the word Europe instead of European Union, because I think that these are two different concepts. Europe is one thing. The European Union is an institutional framework that we are experiencing now. I don't believe in the rhetoric of TINA. There is no alternative. I think that since the failure of the European Union in coping with the most important challenges and problems that European citizens are facing today, that are the lack of democratic accountability of the European institution, the economic crisis, the internal security crisis, and the refugees and migration flows crisis, I think that if the European Union is not able to cope and to solve these problems, we have to start thinking about something different. We have to start discussing about a plan B. If there is no political convergence between reforming the Eurozone, changing the treaties, or so on, or all the debates about the future of the European Union that we are watching on the TV or reading on newspapers, then we have to think something different. Is it possible to create cooperation and convergence between European countries also in a different framework that take into account more the national sovereign states and not a bureaucratic institution that is far from the needs of the European citizens? I think this is possible. I think that this could work well in order to create wellness and good quality, good jobs for European citizens. And just to reply to the question about the European Federation, I don't agree with Philippe. The trend in the world after the Second World War was not towards confederation of federation. We started before the Second World War with more than 130 sovereign nations in the world, and now we are close to 200 sovereign nations. So the trend is the world is not towards European, not towards federations, but towards sovereign nations.
That's called
So
decolonization.
the problem, and I think that we lack two very important things to have the United States of Europe. We lack a European people, and we lack a European language. Maybe we will be able to construct or to create this feeling in the future, but I think that now we don't have the right framework and the proper condition in order to talk about and to create an European federation.
Everybody inside the European Parliament is strongly engaged against unemployment, but there are different solutions. The European Parliament is a very important gymnasium. There are different ideas, different proposals. The proposal of Mr. Zanni is completely different of the proposal of Mr. González Pons. It's coming from another country of the south of Europe, Spain. I think it's important to ask to Mr. González Pons, what do you think? What is possible to do against youth unemployment?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to be realistic, saying two things. First, we should not blame European Union about everything, because European Union is not guilty about everything. And second, youth and unemployment is not an European problem, but it's a problem everywhere. So it's not only our problem, it's the problem of all the globalization. And we need solutions here and everywhere. So we should not blame the European Union because the youth unemployment. What we have to ask the European Union is for specific European solutions for youth unemployment. From my party point of view, the reforms are part of the solution. And from our point of view, in those countries where those countries that are doing reforms are having more and better employments. But that's not going to be my point now. What I want to say is that we represent, of course, a very few part of the population of the world, but we also represent more than the half of the spend of the world about social expenses. I mean, the less than the 10% of the world population is spending more than the 50% of the world social expenses. That's the European way of life. That's the European social model. We have to find solution to the youth unemployment, of course, as all the world. But what we have to do is to find this solution inside of the European social model. We cannot accept a solution out of our social model. And what we have is to develop our social model to help young people to find a good job, because that's the future. But to solve this problem, in my opinion, this problem only can have an European solution. Being small, we are not going to solve it. We only can solve it being big and having an European social model approach.
Thank you. Questions? Aha. People have woken up. Unfortunately, we can't take all of your questions, but the first hand was in front, so could you? We'll take, yes. Yes. And 1 second.
It's a basket team.
Yes. Marili, can you get one over there? Okay, yes.
So, in Estonia, when youth people has finished universities and they have their high education diploma in their hands and they want to work with their fresh mind and they have their creative futuristic solutions. But the problem is when that they are always told that they don't have any experience. And my question is from where and how they can have an experience after finishing universities. And what can do universities to simplify the way of youth employment?
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you. My name is Kristen, and I am here from Estonia. My question will actually build on the previous question, I think, because my question is about unpaid internships. Why does the European Social Charter fail to protect interns? Why can't interns access fair remuneration, which is stated in the European Social Charter that should be accessible to all workers? The European Parliament itself has tackled this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more question.
She was right.
Blonde lady, something yellow. I can't. There we go.
Thank you. My name is Margit. I'm Estonian and from a little island. We heard that one of the most important questions is young people. I think this year is the first time when 16 years old citizens can vote in a local level in Estonia. What do you think about an idea to make this like universities right all over Europe? It's not only to give more rights, but also grow responsibility among young people. So they really feel that they not wait job, but they can create the future policy. So maybe they know answer better. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lundgren is the vice president of the group FDD. He's coming from Sweden. I think that the first answer is for him. The second, also on the social policies for Mrs. Rodriguez, because she is strongly engaged on this. Please.
Yes, my name is Peter Lundgren, and I come from Sweden. It is a very difficult situation when you are young and you are heading out to find your first job. I have spent a lot of my life as a truck driver. That's also difficult when you are young and you got your driver's license, you want to get into a company to get a job. It's not very easy. A modern truck is worth 300,000 euros. And it's very hard to convince the truck owner that you can do the job. So mainly it's about connections. It's about knowing someone or being able to present yourself in a way that will give you the chance to have your first job. It's not easy, but it's like that for everyone. It's not something I think we can solve from the European Union. That is a way in your grown-up life that you need to be able to actually find the new job by showing that you have the skills, that you have the necessary qualifications to get the job. So that I don't see how the European Union by legislation should be able to create the possibilities to get a new job. And I think sometimes people have too much trust in the European Union that they can fix, we can fix everything. No, we cannot, because as I very often say, I'm a Swedish. I believe in Europe. That doesn't believe I believe in European Union, because it has its difficulties also inside the European Union, and there are so many changes of wills everywhere. So I don't think we can solve everything from the European Union. Some ways are better solved in a national level. And from my group, Europe of Freedom and Direct Democracy, that is actually what we want to achieve. We want to achieve freedom for the nation state. We want to be the nation state that should decide the most of the things in the member state. But today we are seeing Brussels interfering more and more in the member states in specific small details in legislation where they automatically, their word is worth more than the national member state is. So I think it's a wrong development that we are seeing in the European Union. We are heading for a United States of Europe. That wasn't the intention of this project, and I think that's why it will fail if it doesn't reform itself, because that is what the European Union is most in need of, reforming itself.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
So let me just tell you something about this panel. This panel is a panel of the European Parliament, so you can see different positions. This is normal. This is European democracy. So let me tell you the viewpoint of my group, which is the second most important group in the European Parliament, coming from Social Democrats. And we are a pro-European group. We believe in a strong and progressive European Union. But now let me address our question. We have a big paradox today in Europe because we have the highly qualified generation ever, and you belong to this generation on one hand, and on the other hand, we cannot turn these into jobs of the future. But we need a lot of jobs in the future, for the future of Europe, to make the energy transition, to make the best of the digital revolution, to provide better services in health, in creative industries, to renovate our cities. There is a lot of work to be done. So why is not this work to be done turned into new jobs, making the best of this young generation in Europe? So this is the big paradox. So let me come with two solutions. One is, and you just refer to this with your questions, we must organize much better the transition between education and the labor market. This is certainly the role of internships, but of course, if internships are jobs, they should be treated as jobs. You should know that's why in the European Parliament now we are pushing for something called European Social Pillar, and one of these priorities is that internships, when they are jobs, they should be treated as jobs, to be paid and have rights. This is an example, and like that you can move step by step to a more stable job. This is the purpose. But then we have the second solution, which is very important, is to foster jobs creation. And for this we need to have investment in Europe. And let me tell you, because I don't have the same views here, I do think that in order to create more jobs in Europe, we need to count on a big market, and we need to count on a monetary zone. So we should not conclude that we need to get rid of the single market or the monetary zone. No, we do need this, but we need this working much better, making sure that all member states belonging to the single market and to the Eurozone, they have equal opportunities to invest and create jobs for their young people. And this is missing, but that's why the Estonian presidency this year will be so important, because you have in your hands the discussion on how can we fix it, how can we change the way the single market and the monetary zone, the Eurozone, are working to have real convergence, better economic and social standards for all member states belonging to the European Union.
Thank you. Now, as time is pressing, we shall move on to our third topic, which is just as important, if not more. It is defense. So we will now talk about European defense and whether Europe is a guardian of peace. And to kick off this discussion, we have Mr. Clyde Mackey.
Thank you. Good afternoon. During the last 3 years, time is flying very fast, especially for us, for Estonians, because 3 years ago, we never expected or believed that threat of Russia will be under serious discussion in Brussels. Now it is. much more. We have ally military forces, our ally military forces locating in Estonia. Denmark, French, and UK. Impressive. Lately, President of United States says that the European Union have to contribute much more to their military defense. I don't know much about military defense, but the European Union is doing it already in cyber field. Today and tomorrow, I'm hosting here in Estonia, in Tallinn, CSAT networking work group. This is a bunch of cybersecurity experts from 28 member states trying to figure out or work out how to be more prepared and more ready for big cyber attacks, as it was WannaCry a couple of weeks ago, or maybe there will be next 2007 large-scale cyber attacks as it was in Estonia. We have to be ready. So how military protection and defense and the cyber defense will work in the future together is good questions, because nowadays none of war activities will take place without cyber component. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is NATO. We are under umbrella of the NATO, but also during the last European meeting in Rome, the 25th of March, the European institutions, the European member states signed an agreement on a better cooperation on defense industry. It's the first step for European defense strategy. There are different ideas. The debate, it's open. We need this European defense, of course. For the large majority of the European Parliament, we need this defense, European defense system. There are people speaking on the package, the monetary package for the European Fund for Defense. But I think it's important to hear now the position of the most important group inside the European Parliament, the European People Party. And then I want to ask to the group, the ECR, the group where are the Conservatives, the British, they are traditionally not more in favor of the NATO than European defense. For this I want to hear before Mr. González responds, and then my colleague, Mr. Zile.
Thank you, President. First of all, I would like to say that it's my honor to add that there are some planes of the Spanish Air Force also here helping as much as they are necessary. Second, it's not, we can have an European system of defense and being at the same time members of the NATO. We can do the two things at the same time, because the question is not how are we going to work with NATO, is how are we going to prepare for the future to anything that could happen. What's happening now in the world is showing us that Europe is more isolated than ever. We've seen what is happening in the United States. We've seen what the Brits had decided to do. We've seen how Russia is moving. We know what we have at the south, and we know from where the terrorist attacks come from, also from inside the European Union, but they have an inspiration out of Europe. So we need an European system, and also we have to spend our money in a more clever way, because now we have 27 defense budgets, and we are spending more than Russia is spending in its defense system. But we have a smaller defense system spending more money, because we are spending money 27 times. So there are many reasons to defend an European system of defense. We need it, and it's perfectly compatible with NATO. It's not a NATO question, it's what we are doing to help NATO, if we are going to be in NATO as Europe or as 27 countries with 27 different budgets for defense.
Yazir, please.
Yeah, well, it's not only because of the British Conservatives in our group. We trust NATO, we trust also in Poland, with the Polish party, with Latvian party, with my own party, with Belgium, with Danish, Dutch, and so on. Why? Partly because if we will construct some European Union defense separately system from NATO, can you imagine in Brussels 2 headquarters? When NATO is, everything is clear, who is responsible for what, how is making decisions, how is it planning from the military professional things. We don't know how it would be done in the new system of European Union defense headquarters. And so do we really have so many secrets to each other? For example, can you imagine in Brussels there will be some ministers of defense or ambassadors coming to the NATO meeting, speaking with the British, American, Turkish colleagues, and then let's say, and many Germans, French, and others from EU member states, and go to another hour to so-called European Union defense headquarters and to speak separate information or separate planning. I think it really doesn't create security. For cyber attacks, it's very precise that in a modern war, as we see, cyber attacks is part of the traditional, conventional war, actually. It's also, Russia made a lot of success, and everybody are treated. Can you imagine some years ago that Madame Merkel, some months ago, she said, look, we are almost certain that Russia will influence our elections. We can see in the United States influence of cyber attacks on elections. We now see Maltese presidency. I very much hope that the Estonian presidency, because of your knowledge since 10 years on cybersecurity, you will survive. But it's obviously very, very... And can you imagine that European citizens feel free, that's very good, satisfied with European defense in cybersecurity, which is a very important part of the defense. And I'm not so sure that let's perform on European level on cybersecurity, and then we can do our more traditional things. Why? Because, like we are not, about 3/4 of the NATO budget are coming from the United States. We can expect that the European Union obviously need European Union, NATO member states, and other member states not belonging to NATO have to increase capacity. That's clear. But we cannot wait that also technologically, if you can imagine, the Americans are spending for many years huge amount of resources. Technologically, they are, I would say, in many fields of military, much more developed than other NATO member states. And do we have enough time to put, we need to put in the European defense industry some research and development money, of course. But we cannot say, let's buy only European Union defense military equipment. I'm not sure that we have in Baltic states, in Poland, and some other countries, 10 years to catch up with technology. We have to be secure for next 6 years when Mr. Putin decided to extend the last time perhaps the last time his leadership in Russia soon. Well, this is most important, 5-6 years, next one, not what's happened after 10 years from now. So that's it. Let's be serious on this cyber security and defense.
Before the question, it's interesting, I think, for you to know the socialist position on this.
The Social Democratic position on security is that we need to take these concerns seriously, because in fact we have new problems. Terrorism attacks, new points of conflict all over the world, and of course now internal tensions in our societies. Nevertheless, from the Social Democratic viewpoint, we need always to balance the concern with security with the concern with human rights. Let me give an example. When managing our border, of course we do need to have a European border. And we need to have an effective European border. But we also need to make sure that if someone is knocking the door of Europeans and fleeing from wars, which is the case of Syria, this person is an asylum seeker and needs to be protected by a proper European asylum system. So we need to have European border, but also a real European asylum system working. A second example is what we have in our societies. This, fortunately, is not the case of Estonia, but when we see the situations in other countries, let's take the example of France, when we see that we have young people making very dangerous acts, but they live in ghettos. So we need to go to the root of the problem and to finish with these ghettos around big cities in Europe and to create really opportunities for the young people to be included and to have a future. So this is our way to think. We need to be tough on what is violent and crime, for sure, but we also need to protect human rights when they need to be protected.
Thank you. Questions? Took more on the other side before. Let's take one from the center. You two can decide between you who gets to ask the question. And then let's take one.
That is here.
Well, okay, we can take her question then. But have you two decided? Yes. So, and then the other one to them.
Okay. So, hello. My name is Boris. I'm from Slovakia, and well, after last American elections, I think a really important topic is the European Union able to protect yourself without United States? And what do you think about the idea of common European army? So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And your question, please?
It's quite difficult to stand up.
Please.
So, hello, Mr. President and parliamentarians. And my question is connected with social networks. So, my name is Julia, and I'm not a student. I'm just a schooler. So, but I will finish school, maybe, I hope. So, my question is, maybe as you know that in Ukraine were blocked a lot of social networks, Russian networks, which are very popular in Ukraine. So about 18 million Ukrainians used such social networks. So what do you think? Is it a restriction of the rights, or it's a way of protection?
Thank you.
Zimmer and Lambers.
Okay, I will start with the European Army. It was here in the middle of the room. Yes, we had also inside the left a discussion about the advantages of a European army, and we have different positions only in our political family, because some people are saying, okay, European army, that could be contrapunct to the NATO. It would be easier to bring them together, it would be more effective, and so on. But there are a lot of unsolved questions. Who is controlling this European army? Look to Germany. The Bundeswehr is controlled by the parliament. And there is no decision about the Bundeswehr and where she is going in which country, in which conflict region Bundeswehr has to go. Without the discussion and decision by the Parliament. But the European Parliament has not such a right, because defense policy is national policy. And this is also the question for me. What should be the goal? What should be, in which interest should a European army act? What should the European army defend? And I think without having a concrete proposal in which way we are going on, is a European army replacing national armies in the member states? There is no base now to decide or so, because we have so much different answers on that I don't believe that we will find a solution on this base. And also saying to the NATO, I was surprised that it was possible that Trump was asking and demanding from the European members in the NATO to enhance in a short time the contribution to the NATO, to finance the NATO to 2% of the GDP. And I think if we as European members are following this demand by Trump, then we lose the right to speak that we have no enough money to solve our problems inside the European Union and also to address the migration problem, address all the global problems or any other thing. Also the development cost we have to face. Development costs in Africa, in Asia, or in other regions of the world. And that's why I have another goal and another aim to discuss about borders. I think, yes, in the moment we need border. I think, yes, it's clear we need a regulated defense policy. But I think we need also legal ways for migrants. And in my mind, it's not okay to give this responsibility to Turkey, to an autocratic system and regime, that they will decide who can go to the European Union, and that they are able also to choose between migrants and asylum seekers and refugees. And that's why my demand is we should create legal ways, and we should give them the right to ask for asylum seekers. We should check it, we should prove it, we should support refugees, and also we should have for migration a common EU law and legislation.
Mr. Lambert, also the Ukraine is important for
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the question on the social networks in Ukraine, so I'm not sure that, well, I don't know whether you can clarify, because it was a bit fuzzy to me. Yeah.
Yes, and it's very popular in countries that are post-Soviet Union countries, so it's like the Russian speaker. Yes, and about 1 month ago, or no, several weeks ago, so the president of Ukraine, Pyotr Poroshenko, he decided to block all such social networks. Yes, but it was very popular, and he said that it's. Yeah, so what do you think? Is it a restriction of the rights? So that's,
So let me start with that. To me, it smells very much like China, blocking networks. And you know, democracy should be strong enough to withstand dissenting opinions. And even there's a lot of talk about fake news and all the rest of it. And then in order to fight that, should we then limit the freedom of expression? And if I have to choose, I choose always for the freedom of expression. And does that mean that fake news will circulate? Yes. But again, I prefer to bet on the intelligence of people rather to bet on them being stupid. And so I very much oppose this idea of restricting freedom of expression, freedom of press. And indeed, in the 21st century, social networks are very much part of that freedom of expression. And are there excesses possible with freedom of expression? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. But that's, again, part of the game. I mean, being alive entails risks. The risk of hurting yourself, the risk of dying. But I prefer to be alive. So that's my response. On the European army, I would say that the army is one of the two instruments, the other one being the police, which hold the legitimate right to kill. And if there's one thing that we need to keep under strict democratic control, it's that. Even more than economic policy, even more than fiscal policy, it's the right to kill. So police, army must be under absolute democratic control. And indeed, as Gabi said, we have very different standards here in Europe. In Germany, you do not commit the Bundeswehr before the Bundestag has given a go-ahead. In France, the president sends the army outside, and then afterwards, maybe the parliament has something to say, right? Very different traditions. So, to me, you can only go to a European army under the strictest of all democratic oversight standards. and we are not there yet. Does that mean that we should not do some stuff which may be steps in that direction? No, of course. There's a lot we can do without getting to the ultimate point where we have a common army. Maybe we'll get there someday. But meanwhile, what can we do? One, we could start training our people together. There's many different initiatives, sometimes bilateral, sometimes multilateral within the European Union, where we have common schools to train our military. Well, I would urge that this would be the point to start, having common training syllabi, common training schools, so that people also learn to work together. And just to give you one example, do you know where most European fighter pilots are trained? In one common school, in Shepherd, Texas, in the United States. Come on, I mean, is it not the case that we have also clean skies in Spain or elsewhere where we can train all our pilots together? Come on. Instead of outsourcing that, I would keep that within Europe. And then there's a number of things we can do together on the procurement side. I mean, when Belgium buys a fighter jet or an armored vehicle, what is it so special about Belgian requirements that make them so different from the French or German or Estonian or whatever requirements? I mean, come on. We are doing 27 times the same work, which is stupid, and which invites also for shady deals, I would say, in procurement. Third thing that we could do, and again, very pragmatic, support functions, logistics, air transport, sea transport. We have already a European Air Transport Command. Well, why do not we expand that to have common support tools? And the last step is, of course, the fighting units. But again, that is the last step. If you already do all the rest under democratic control, under democratic oversight, we will already have achieved quite a lot. And also in terms of value for money, I do believe that we will get much more bang for our buck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, defense is very much closely related to security, our final topic today. So the next 15 minutes, we will be discussing protecting citizens in these turbulent times. And to kick off this discussion, we have Marita Mathisen. Here you go.
We live in an interesting era. The world order, what was established after the World War II and seemed so stable and secure, has started to change. The European Union, which seemed like the European version of the American dream, is not that dreamy and desirable anymore. On the contrary, for some, it seems even better to leave. On the same time, we are facing refugee and migration crisis, growing threat of terrorism, hybrid threats, including cyber attacks and fake news, and more influential actions by Russia to divide our societies from the inside. These are difficult challenges what the EU and more broadly the Western society faces. As a result, political uncertainty has increased. This is reflected, for example, in the extreme populist parties that are proposing xenophobic and Eurosceptic narratives. This constitutes a major threat to the democratic system of our member states and to the cohesion of the EU. So, is our democracy also our vulnerability? How can we protect our citizens and societies? How can we prevent terrorist attacks better than we do now? What could be the best way to deal with the migration crisis? How can we raise knowledge of Russian disinformation campaigns among our citizens? It seems that more than ever in the history of the EU and also in NATO, integrated and effective security cooperation between these organizations is needed to face both internal and external security challenges.
Thank you. On this, we need to have two different ideas, different positions. Before the socialist group and then the NF position.
Well, I really appreciate your statement because you are raising a fundamental question for our common future. And what is at stake is, you are right, the global order is changing. We see this every day. And we have basically two scenarios. One scenario is that all of a sudden, all the big powers will start becoming a kind of nationalistic powers. And then ultimately you could have a clash of nationalisms in the world, and this will be incredible dangerous. But we have a second scenario, and the second scenario is to respond to the common challenges by strengthening the multilateral system based on the United Nations, which needs to be renovated. And I believe that the second scenario is by far the best for us Europeans. And by the way, European Union needs to assert itself as a central pillar of this multilateral system. This is the only way to cope with the challenge you were referring to. Because if we have a pole of conflict, we need to have a joint action regarding this pole of conflict. This is the case in Ukraine, this is the case in Syria. If you now feel that we can have a big wave of migration coming to Europe, well, of course we are trying to cope with the issue, building up European asylum system, building up a European border, but we know that the real solution for this is to go to the root of the problem and to work with developing countries in Africa, in Asia, in whatever, to make sure that these people, they will have a proper future and proper jobs in the regions they are living in. So this is the response we need to have, and for this we need to have a multilateral system opening possibilities for these countries when it comes trade, access to technology, access to finance. So I would say that this is in our interest, European Union, to make sure that the multilateral system will be strengthened and will protect us against these threats.
Okay, thank you. Zanni.
Yes, thank you very much for your question and for this debate that is about one of the most important challenge for the European citizens and nations. So what about security? We have to talk about two different issues, internal security and external security. About internal security, the main question and the main challenge for the European institution is how can we coordinate the free movement of people, that is one of the pillars of the European treaties, and the internal security guarantee for European citizens. So I'm remembering one of the saddest day of my experience in the European Parliament was March 2016, when two suicide bombers blown up at the Brussels airport. So one of the responsible of this attack traveled for at least 1 week around different European member states, was the most wanted people inside the European Union, but he was able to travel around Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, France, Italy, and then coming back to Brussels. So this is a very important issue. Are we able to coordinate internal security with the free movement of people? That's it's a $1 million question. On the external security, I agree with the position of the socialists on this issue. We have to coordinate better with other states, not only at the European Union level, but at the worldwide level. We need the cooperation in managing the external security and refugees and migration flows problems. We need the cooperation of all the states that are represented also in the United Nations. 2 points in order to cope with the issue of migration flows and external security. The first is to try to create the condition in the states for the people to have properly living standards. So there are a couple of initiatives at the European Union level that are trying finally to do this. One that I agree in the general framework, but not in the mode that we choose to implement it, is the external fund for Africa. So basically, European Union is creating a fund that will invest in infrastructures and projects in order to try to fill the gap between the developing countries and the most developed countries in Africa. So this is one step. And the second one is stop interfering with the internal policy issues of these countries. What happened in Libya and what is happening in Syria is no sense to me. We are, as European states, we are selling weapons to these countries, so probably contributing to feed the military conflicts in these countries. So a moratoria against selling weapons to this country is necessary. And we have to reshape, in my view, the foreign policy of the European Union and some European Union member states. Really, we have a situation now in Syria that is completely messed up. So on the one side, we have Russia, Iran, and other states that are supporting the official government. On the other side, we have the US that, with the Middle East allies that is supporting the so-called rebels, and the European Union that is trying to find a balance. As I say, the only solution to the internal and external security problem is cooperation, not only at the European Union level, but at the worldwide level. That's the only way to cope with one of the most important challenges that we are facing today in the world.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we will take 2 questions. I was going to say from people who haven't asked questions yet, but we so far have, well, the 2 people who have their hands up, then yes, you can ask your first question and you can ask the second question.
So, regularly we read newspapers or watch on television some news stories that the Coast Guard saves thousands of refugees from drowning at sea, and our hearts are breaking into pieces. So, question is why the European Union itself won't provide the refugees with transportation by ferries, planes from their country.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm from Austria. 2 quick questions. First question, talking about cooperation, how is cooperation, for example, with Libya possible as the government is really weak? And the second question, how far is the European Union Operation Sophia in the Mediterranean Sea? That would be really interesting for me. Thank you.
Okay, you are close to the end. Please, short answer. We start with Mr. Zile, then Mr. Lundgren, and in conclusion, Mr. Gonzalez Pons.
Starting with this heartbreaking situation in Mediterranean Sea, we have to understand that currently the flows are coming only from African coast, from Libya. It was catched by NGO ships very quickly, and there is a huge smugglers network. Which, earning by Europol data about 2015, about 6 billion turnover. It's much more profitable business for those who are smuggling people than it's drug smuggling or arms smuggling. So let's be serious. And Frontex and also this Coast Guard agency, which was created by European Union, I think this is the best solution. So if you would like to put those people who are migrants in the coast to help them, you can also move to other areas. Maybe they would like to go to Russia, for example. So, but not instead of European Union. That's, I think it's, and this is partly also answer on that. We have to be serious. We have to understand where is the network of the criminal business working with those poor people and trying to take last money and sometimes not only money from them and from some relatives and other families. So that's why we have to share and to make it for those who are really refugees, for those who are just migrants and organized by criminal. This migration is organized by criminal network.
Well, I would say the problem actually is that European Union is more or less giving the market to the smugglers. Because there's only one way to stop the drownings in the Mediterranean. That is to stop the boats. Exactly as Australia did. They haven't had one people drowning in 2 years since they stopped the boats from coming. That is the only way of dealing with this, because those smuggler organizations, as my colleague Sille said, they are making a fortune of this, and they don't care about human lives. Once the boat is out and a rescue ship will come, immediately the boat is emptied and the people are being brought up on the ship. You will see a fast-coming rubber boat with armed people that will take the boat back, take it into the coast again, fill it with people, send it out again. That is how the operation works in the Mediterranean. So there's only one way to deal with this. That is to stop the boats. And to be quite honest, the people that are in the most need of help, they don't get the chance, because they cannot pay the smugglers the money they ask for being a passenger on those boats. So it's totally different approach that we are doing right now. There is only one way to deal with this, as my colleague Mr. Sunny said here. That is actually to put in the effort in their home areas, give them hope that there actually is a possibility to live in their own life. We must help them to build the infrastructure, give them hope, but first of all, we need to stop the boats leaving the coast.
Mr. González Pons.
Let me say that, in my opinion, you cannot stop the boats.
Australia did.
And you cannot send back the people who comes because they are not from the country where they are coming. And you cannot return people to Syria, or you cannot return people to the Sahel. I come from Spain, and I know very well the African border of Europe, what is in Ceuta and in Melilla. And I have to tell you that if I were a father of children in Africa, I will try to come to Europe, for sure, because it's understandable. Yeah. I'll only say 3 things. First, there's no link between refugees and terrorism.
Yes, sir.
All the terrorist attacks have been done by people who has born in Europe and who has gone to European schools and who lives in European neighborhoods, not by refugees. Second, it's not the same the refugees than the economic migrants. We have to find a solution to the migrants, but we are obliged to solve the problem of the refugees, because when the Europeans were the refugees, lots of countries receive us. And third, we need a common policy about legal migrants, and we have not it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear friends. My job is to manage the different ideas of these very active members of the European Parliament. The President is the Speaker. My position is the position of the majority of the European Parliament. But I have, of course, my ideas as I am member of the European People Party. But when I am the president, I am the speaker. And I respect every member of the parliament, 751 members, with different ideas. My job is to manage the debate inside the European Parliament. You heard different today, different ideas, different positions. There is a majority pro-European. There are also members against, not against Europe, but against European institutions. This is democracy. I think also it's important for everyone to speak and to hear your different ideas, to answer to your questions. Thank you very much, because for us it's very important to be in contact with the citizens. When the institutions are closer to the citizens, the situation, the democracy, is not a good democracy. For this, we want to be close to you. My job during my presidency for the next 2 years and a half is to reduce the distances between European institutions and European citizens, because we understand very well your problems, but are the problems of our sons, our daughters, unemployment, terrorism, and immigration. We want to work all together with our different positions for good answer for your question. Thank you very much.
Now, my job as a lecturer is to educate, and I hope everybody learned something today, something new from others. And as a representative of Tallinn University, once again, I would like to thank you all for coming, and have a good evening.